To give us something inspirational.
I did a TEDx, thank you.
Okay.
And it was about making the shift to authentic conversation. Making the shift to authentic conversation. You know, in there, you know, one of the stories I tell is you're standing in line at a grocery store. And I said that is such a lost opportunity because most people sort of stand in how I describe it, you know, this vapid silence, you know, which is like worthless silence. And when in fact that person, I mean, if you play it right, is interesting, they've got some, you know, something going on. I trademarked this question that says, what's gone well today? Instead of how you doing. Because I don't actually, if things are going down, I don't want to hear about it actually. I want to hear about what's gone well. And this woman says, you know, I get to walk my grandchildren to school every day. And then, oh, that's nice. So that's what I would do. I said in it, I said, this has the potential of having a greater impact than the introduction of email in the 1980s. Because, you know, the whole point of campus conversations is to let's change the let's alter the conversation on campus, and let's give people a chance, another chance. This is sort of a strange community because it's so rich and loving and mindful already. I let that person go by, and because, you know, I ask a question and sometimes they'll just sort of blow me away or blow me off, and I'll think, forget it, next. And you know, and I just switch it up. I say, next person in line, it's like on a bus, when you're a bus driver, you know, you get all those people coming by. If you're ticked off by one person who's just being a jerk, then you're going to have a lousy day. So, that's my take. Next, yes?
What do you think divides us the most as living beings?
My goodness, isn't that a lovely question? I think it's not listening. You know, I saw, we were running this workshop, and I have no end of great questions that are written down on sheets of paper, etc. And so in this interaction, we handed a great question to this guy. He asked this woman who I was working with a question, and then he brings out his phone. She's already asked. He's asked her a great question. One of my questions. They were a good question. And she took it seriously. She starts answering from the heart, and he starts like going through his pockets, looking at his phone. Boom! That is really, I don't know if I answered the question, but that divides us. And it shows, another thing is, that if we do pay attention, we are on such an elevated opportunity. Like we stand out. When I ask one of my questions sometimes, like in a grocery lineup or any other place like a bus, you know, sometimes people their head will actually knock back. Like, what the hell was that? And at one time, I asked the question of the cashier, and I said, hey, do you want to try this out? You know, try it out? Let's try it on the next person. So I walked behind her, you know, now I'm on the other side of the cash, and I said, okay, ask her. You know, I'm coaching her. It was so much fun. And like, she had the spirit. Like, we had this thing. So I'm not that concerned about the dividing. I'm interested in the uniting. And when you conspire, like when you share the spirit, we said that these things, the thing is, it changes people's lives. If you give people a little tool, then they go, yes. Thank you for your great questions. This is lovely. Any more? Yes?
Do you remember how you got into this? Like, did you start asking these questions and then notice you were doing it? Or was it an idea you had in consciousness?
I was a school teacher, and I started I asked this one kid in class, I said, bring your parent to school, or one of those kind of trips. And he said, I said, what'd your dad do? He said, oh, he's a staff sergeant in the RCMP. I said, hey, would he be willing to come to class? So I started this whole thing of bringing people to class. And then having themes like we're doing here and asking those things, it was massive. Now, does that answer the question?
And that's when you started doing it like in the supermarket with baths?
Yeah, well, so then when I moved to Victoria from Campbell River, Courtney, I thought, wait a minute, it's not just kids who don't know how to ask questions, it's the thing. So I started running these workshops called Power of Personal Story, because I saw, because you just listen to the banter that people have. It's just, what a waste of time. You know? Because I know what's possible. It's absolutely stunning. I'll tell you one little thing and then yours next. So we were doing a project on local history, and I asked this one woman, about, a story or whatever. She says, she lives with this guy who's 90. She said, oh, he just had his 90th birthday. I said, really? She says, yeah, I wrote a poem for it. She starts filtering through her purse. She didn't find it. She said, and then she just repeated the whole poem off the top of her head. It was amazing. It was about love. It was about her motors, started a little slower, but when they get going, she's 90. Remember this? And it was just like, wow. So that kind of stuff, I get goosebumps. I have goosebumps right now. You can see it right there. And I also noticed that it's teachable. Oh, and then you get some groups and they say, well, I'm an introvert. I don't care if you're an introvert. Introvert just means you like working with a few people. All I'm talking about is working with one. You got a question?
Yeah, so after you unite with someone, or once you make a connection with someone, what do you hope they take away from that encounter, or what do you like to take away from it?
I go home and I think about it, and I sometimes blog about it. I have a site called What's Gone Well Today. So I reflect on it. So I hope they reflect on it. I hope like that cashier will try it on their thing. Because those cashiers, they deal with 200 to 300 people. It could be an amazing job, a life-changing, health-giving job, or it can just be, And there's some people who are in theater here who work at Thrifties. Man, they bring panache to that job. You might have seen that guy. It's amazing. So I hope that's what they're bringing. Yes?
I'm talking about one-on-one questions right now, but when speaking to like a group, like as a whole, how do you keep everybody engaged into what you're saying?
I think we should assume that they're interested in what we're doing. But thank you, that's a great question. Because when we did my TED Talk, they hired a consultant and they worked with the speakers because, it's a big deal and you want it to go well. And the person said, what's your story? Like, you gotta have a story. And in working with him, I was crying. He brought up stories to me from my own life. And I was crying as I was sharing it. God, I'm getting a right now about it. But so, what's your story? Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's the thing. I would never ask someone, what's your story? But I would think of myself. And the other one is one of the themes there is less is more. I keep it real short. And if they're interested, they'll ask you. And if they're not interested, they'll go to sleep. They'll say, shit, I wish this guy would shut up. When is it over? You know what? We promised that this thing would be, and in the spirit of less is more, I'm gonna stop. You're welcome to keep talking to me if you want to, or get more food. Thank you for the great questions. Thanks for coming. I think we're doing this with different people here, never me again, every 2 weeks. Cool. So thank you. And if there's so many other ways of being involved. Go to conversationworks.ca, and then you can see that and participate and all that stuff. But reflecting on things really brings value, not just to me, but because I go, oh, God, that's what that was about. But thank you. I had fun. Thank you. Derek is the dude. Derek and I, we've only talked twice, and already we've got this massive idea together. This is Derek's idea.
It was the collaboration of us.
Yeah, it was
very
cool.
nice. Thank